Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us over your lunch hour today for another one of our WESC webinars. My name is Lola Adibogan, and I am WESC Marketing and Admin Assistant. Today, we have Tracy Arno, CEO/founder of Essence Recruitment. If you have any questions for Tracy as we go through the presentation, please submit them in the Q&A box, not the regular chat box. However, do feel free to use the regular chat box to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your business. And as always, this webinar is being recorded and will be available for on-demand viewing. You'll receive an email tomorrow at this time with the link to the recording. With that, I'll pass it over to you, Tracy, to now begin the presentation.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me today. I'm excited to talk about something that I love, and that's hiring. So I just want to make sure that everyone can see my screen now.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Well, thank you very much. So here we are in 2021. And we are getting ready to hire. The pandemic we're seeing light at the end of the tunnel. Businesses are back to work, and we're starting to plan for 2021 and the future. But for many reasons, full-time employees may not be the right option for you. So before making the decision to grow your team, you really do need to know your options. We all know that people are the reasons, are instrumental in the growth of your organization, but possibly a traditional full-time permanent employee isn't the right fit for you. So today, I just want to explore different options that might be better for you, for your business today and moving into the future. So I want to note that I am much more of a conversationalist. I would appreciate more of questions. Please stop me at any given time. Let's talk about maybe some of the experiences that you have gone through. I can give you some of the experiences that I have gone through, but stop at any time and ask questions, or if you want further detail into what I'm talking about at that time. But let's have a conversation instead of me just talking at you. For the next 45 minutes, the few things that I do want to go through is I want to talk about the considerations before you make any decisions. I do want to talk about employee cost ratio because, of course, with tight budgets, we need to talk about actually if you can afford an employee or not, and if not, what are other options. We also want to talk about just the definitions of the employee, a contractor, outsourcing, and virtual assistants, just some different options, and of course, the pros and cons of each. So first of all, I just want to go through a few considerations before you make any decisions. So with any time that you're deciding to add an employee or a contractor or a subcontractor or outsourcing, you really need to, whenever you're trying to make a decision on spending money on employee costs, you need to ask the question, why are you hiring? So what is it today that makes you think that you need to add someone to your team? And second of all, when you can answer the question of the why, what are you trying to achieve? So at the end of the day, if you're going to bring someone on in any capacity, what would be success? What would be the outcome? And so when you can clearly define what that is, it will help you make better decisions on who you bring on into your team. I'm going to say this a few times throughout this presentation, but in all times when you're considering bringing someone to your team, you need to remember why you started your business, what you're good at, and what you're not good at. And if you're ever trying to do something that you're not good at, you need to reflect on how much time and cost that is spending to the company when you can actually have someone else do that. One of the things that I've always seen through recruitment, and when I'm talking to owner-managed companies, is that they feel that they can be everything to everyone, and we just can't be. We're experts in what we do, and we need to hire out what we're not good at, because at the end of the day, the cost will be much more minimal than you trying to do something that you can't do. So please always think about, what is my rate? What do I bill myself out? And am I spending double, triple, 4 times the amount doing something that I'm just not good at? So the other thing that you always need to consider is doing the math. What can you afford? So when we're thinking about revenue versus payroll costs, what is a great ratio? And depending on what type of business you have, so if you have a service or if you have a product, it does change the percentage. But however, a good healthy goal is that 15 to 30% of your costs are the percentage of your payroll costs are to your revenue. So we do see for good employees all the way from 40 to 80% of your revenue being payroll costs. However, to have a healthy bottom line, we want to look at that 15 to 30%. So when you think about your revenues, what can you afford? And again, this will make a decision as if you can hire a permanent employee or if you're going to hire a contract employee, if someone is going to be full-time, if someone's going to be part-time, because at the end of the day, we need great people, but we need to be able to pay them, and we need to still be in business after we have those people. So when you're making the decision on adding someone in, ensure that you're keeping in consideration what are my payroll costs and what is my revenue and where is the percentage come in. So the other thing that I want to talk about when we're hiring permanent employees are the hidden costs to hiring. So this is something that a lot of people don't take in consideration. So this also, when you're the hidden cost to hiring, it's also some of these do come in when you're talking about contractors and outsourcing also. But you need to think about, again, your time. How much time are you taking to fill a vacancy, to do the interview, to do the recruitment process? Even if you're considering it, how much time are you taking to look for the right contractor? How much time is it? How much cost is it taking for you to do the recruitment and interviewing process? Then you also have to think about some of the missed opportunities. So if you're trying to do something that you're not great at, and or if you're trying to hire and the vacancy is there for quite some time, what is being missed? So where are those opportunities where you can't help grow your business? You also have to keep in consideration of training and development. So if you're hiring a permanent employee, there's an uptake on training and development. It will take some time. It is very rare that someone can come into the organization and hit the ground running, because they also have to remember your culture, your expectations, your processes, your operations. And then again, if you hire a contractor, yes, they can have the extra expertise coming in, but there is time to help to work with them to understand your company and what you're trying to achieve. So there are always hidden costs to hiring. The last thing that I just want to talk about, and this comes more to the permanent side of employees, is hiring a bad employee. So there is some debate on actually the number, the cost of what this looks like. Some documents, some research says it's 1 to 5 times someone's salary. Some say it's about 1.5 years of someone's salary, and then some document or some research is saying about 30% of their salary. So I kind of took the average there. And again, it comes from the hidden costs. It comes from morale, culture, missed opportunity, your time, training and development all over again. So when you're making a decision to hire or even hire a contractor, make sure you're hiring the right person first, the right person the first time. So you really want to take the time and effort to go back into those considerations of why and what are you trying to achieve, and ensure that you outline a good process to ensure you have the right person on your team, no matter what that capacity is. I'm going to stop there for a second. I'm going really fast. So I just want to make sure that everyone, this makes sense for everyone. If anybody has any questions at this time, if they want me to go in further detail with any of these slides this far.
Looks like we have one question. Oh, never mind. A comment.
Okay. Okay, quiet group today. Okay, so we might be done in like a half an hour here because I like to talk really fast. I just need to. So There's lots of options that you actually have. Like I said, at the very beginning of this presentation, we talked about, is permanent full-time the right option? Is that the only option? And traditionally, that's really where organizations have just run to. Oh, I need to hire someone. I need to hire someone. I got to get them on board. So I'm just going to hire someone. But in reality, that's not really, you have lots of more options that are given to you. So today I'm just going to talk about some of those options today, because there's part-time and full-time employees. It doesn't always have to be full-time. Of course, we have contractors and or outsourcing. And then I just want to talk about virtual assistants because it's coming up more and more. The other thing we're going to talk about is a mix, right? Like it doesn't just have to be one way all the time. Being agile and being able to work with various different types of in very different types of capacity might be the option for you. And right now, in my experience, that's my option. That's what I'm doing to help grow my business. So we can talk about that. So I want to go more in depth because not everybody understands exactly what the difference is. And actually, there's even some situations that we can talk about when you have to be careful even with CRA if we're hiring an employee or a contractor. So, and then there's a mix up of sometimes about what a contractor is and what outsourcing is. So I just want to give a little bit more of a clear definition before we go into the pros and the cons. So an employee is someone that permanently works for you. So you pay them a wage with salary, you give them a strict hours of days, a strict job description, and you really are, they work for you under your company. A contractor is someone that would take on a project. So you may want to contract something out. And they have an expertise in their field. And so you would hire them to take over a specific contract. However, where some people get confused is that they feel that they can hire a contractor, but they want them to work as your employee. CRA doesn't even allow that. They are under their own umbrella and they work under their guidelines, but they're helping you with a specific project or expertise. So for example, right now I have someone working on contract for me. It's varied hours and it's very dependent on what project is needed. So she's actually sitting in Kelowna in her office where she chose to be. And I hired her to take over a recruitment process that we didn't have expertise on. So she's working on this project with me. So we contracted her out, but she is not an employee of Essence, and I cannot dictate where her location is, where her hours are. I mean, strict hours are, but we do talk about what the expectations of that project is. What the difference with outsourcing is that you're outsourcing in expertise. So for myself, I outsource all my IT, all my marketing, all my bookkeeping, all of that is outsourced to someone else. So it's taking a specialty that is not actually within your organization that could be in-house, but you're outsourcing it out. So we always have, like I said, like my bookkeeper, like number one, marketing, I'm not great at, that's always outsourced. And my communications is all outsourced. So I can do what I can do well. So I'm doing recruitment. And so this again goes back to, I had to decide, it seems very costly at times, but I had to decide what am I good at and what am I not good at. And second of all, from feedback from my clients, one of the things that I'm not good at is written communication. So when I'm writing job descriptions and I'm sending them forward, I'm looking unprofessional. So I hired out that communications and I outsource it every time. So it actually helps my employer brand and my professionalism. I noticed that there's a comment. Should we stop here for a second? Or we're good to go forward?
To go forward, I don't.
Okay. Does everyone understand the difference, or does anybody have any examples that they can talk about when they made a decision between if they were going to hire an employee, contractor, outsourcing? Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about that is not on the side is virtual assistants. So this has been something that's been in and out of my, in the 10 years of Essence, we've had tried this different times. And so where a virtual assistant is, and where I think a lot of people visualize virtual assistants is someone that is overseas. That's not necessarily the case. There are actually people here in Saskatoon or in Saskatchewan or in Canada that are virtual assistants. And what they do is that they're not an employee of yours. They're actually their own business again, but they take on your stuff. So the stuff that, that you want, and it can be varied duties, but it's varied operational or administrative. And they work with you in their location, but they can take care of your stuff. When Essence considered doing a virtual assistance, I think we've considered it 3 different times in the last 10 years. It was really because I was getting inundated with stuff and I wasn't able to work on the business. And I actually even wasn't able to work in the business because I was doing stuff. So, some people, and depending on how your comfort level is that they could do everything from managing your calendar to writing reports, lots of documentation, research, all those different things that maybe you don't want to do that someone virtually could do. That's another option that I just don't have on the slide, but I just wanted to talk about. It's really just as a definition, it's somebody that can take on your administrative duties in a virtual capacity. So I just want to talk about the pros and the cons about each and went into considering each one of these. And when I think about even like the pros of contractors, I'm also thinking of outsourcing at this time too. So when I'm thinking about both contractors and outsourcing, number one thing that I would have to say, and the feedback from others that have done this, is like they just really can work on your needs. So you dive in and you say, listen, I need this done. They have the expertise and they can do it. They're more cost effective than employees because they are there for that project only or that specialty. The other thing that I didn't mention before is when considering an employee versus a contractor, you need to consider if you have enough work for a full-time or part-time employee. So maybe to fill the gap within your organization, you just need a specific, maybe 10 hours a week, or maybe even 5 hours a week. So, it's not worthy of having someone be permanent and full-time when you just don't have enough work for them, but they're filling that gap when you determine the what and the outcome. And again, there is less investment required for recruiting, onboard, and training, but please consider that there is still an investment. The cons that I would have to say is that they are not invested in your company. They're invested in their company. So they're going to come first, not you. So what you also have to be is agile with their time. Because they more than likely have other clients and they have other motivations. Because if they wanted to be your employee, they would be an employee. They enjoy being a contractor. They enjoy being on their own. So they have their schedule. So you have to remember that you have to be agile with that. At first, the budget seemed really high. So if you were to have an employee, maybe you're paying $50 an hour and you're paying a contractor and or outsourcing your work at $150 an hour. So the budget seems high, but if you take in the big picture, when you consider in your time, your effort, your expertise versus theirs, and in reality, the commitment of just only having to have that amount of time, it seems larger, but at the end of the day, it probably isn't if you do the whole calculation. And again, you have less control on how they're going to complete the contracts because that is their business, not that yours. You're hiring them to do an expertise. So you have to trust the way that they are completing those projects as long as the outcome is what you're looking for. So some people who like to have a lot of hands-on and a lot of say might be frustrated with the way that contractor is completing the task and or how outsourcing is done. So like the marketing, that type of thing. As long as you just need to remember outcomes. That's what you need to remember. Are we successful with the outcome? Pros of employees. So with Essence, I built this organization on fit and culture. So the whole thought is that someone can do the job, but do you want them to do the job, and do they want to do the job? It's really about making sure that there's a great fit within your culture that you want to lead. You have a lot more control of that when you hire employees. So you're building a team under an organization of a culture that you want. So that is really probably, I'd say, the number one thing. They're invested in your organization. They're a long-term solution. They're with you. They're committed with you. And then you can also ensure that, you can grow and develop people. So some of those tasks that you've been dealing with, you can continually move those off. It's really more of a growth strategic plan, and they know your business and they're invested in it. Where employees are the cons, is number one is, they can be more costly, right? So you are dedicated on a permanent salary for them. So if you don't have enough work for them, for a full-time or part-time, or if you have to take all the risks of if they're not performing well, the training and development, all of those costs are on you. So there is more risk in that way in the short term. However, if you're looking for the long term and you can grow your team, that's when that's a great fit. So then a virtual assistants, again, just want to talk about that a little bit more. So the advantages, number one, they tend to cost a lot less. Like they take the stuff off your plate. And they are very inexpensive. If you're going overseas, they're really inexpensive. In Canada, because of our labor laws and the competitive market, they do cost more. You have to deal, they do have the experience. So you're not necessarily training and developing your virtual assistants. You are expecting that they could hit the road running, that you're just giving them tasks and they can complete them. They tend to be well educated, and this is an interesting one that I always thought was really interesting, is foreign virtual assistants tend to celebrate different holidays, so they actually have different schedules than you. However, when we go into the disadvantages, time is a huge disadvantage. So what happens is that they're working at different hours than you, so communication is hard. And usually language differences can be a difficulty too. Culture can be a difficulty. There could be connections, like, we're doing really well with this virtual, but there can be difficulty with that. The customer service is not as good as it could be when you have someone locally or here. And if someone was here, they have a better knowledge of course, like the no time difference. There's better knowledge of culture. And one of the biggest disadvantages that I've heard, and the biggest risk, is security. So if you're giving away information, and that's including passwords, maybe credit card information, maybe banking information, if someone was local, you would have more of a less risk than you would if someone overseas. So I did a presentation with a group with WESC not very long ago, and we had lots of examples about utilizing virtual assistants. And I would say that probably only about 25% of them actually thought that virtual assistants actually worked for them. What I would say to that is that I think you need to interview your virtual assistants, and you need to interview the organizations that you're going to use. It's becoming more and more of a thing. And what's happening is that, you used to hire a virtual assistant company, and they would give you the background checks, and they would have all the references, and it would be more of a professional type of setting. But however, now, and you probably noticed it in your LinkedIn, people are popping up everywhere being contracted as a virtual assistant on their own. So it's like any other company. They worked for a company, they thought that they could do it better, they can do it on their own. But then you don't have any background checks, you don't have any, references, you don't have really that security that they're actually somebody, and they're just not a made up kind of person. So I would really do your due diligence and making sure you do your background checks. And that would be anywhere. Even if this person is in Canada, I would ensure that you do your background checks and don't trust just what's in front of you, but really dig deep in behind.
We had one comment from Sharon in the chat box.
Okay. Yeah, Sharon, I agree. That's kind of one of the things about they're not dedicated to your company, and they can come and go as they please because they're being a contractor on their choice, right? They want their flexibility on that. So I do agree that there's not that stability. When you do have the contractor, you do have to keep in mind that they are for their company first. Yeah, so I went rather fast. I was kind of expecting a little bit more questions, but I guess the one thing that I just want to talk about again is fit and culture is very important to me. It's been instrumental in our business, and we've just never veered away from that. So it's really looking at, you know, what is the right choice for you, and you know, will it fit what you want as a culture within your organization? It's really been the root of our success. So whatever decision that you make, you need to ensure, you know, what type of culture you're looking for your company and how you're going to surround people who align with it. So if it's going to be a permanent employee, if it's going to be a subcontractor, if it's going to be something that you're going to outsource, just do your due diligence to make sure that you can work with them and they align with your culture and your values. There's lots of people that have great expertise, but doesn't necessarily mean that they're the right fit for you and your organization, no matter what that is. The other thing that I'd have to say is whatever decision you make today might be great for today, but it doesn't necessarily mean you need to keep that decision 6 months down the line, a year down the line, 2 years down the line. I would really encourage going back and reviewing, you know, who is on your team at what capacity, and seeing if it's the right thing as you move forward. Because as your business grows, pivots, changes, realigns, whatever that might be, you know, you might go from an employee to all contractors to maybe employees and contractors, or maybe outsourcing. So my personal experience with this is all of that. Like within the last 10 years, I've had all just permanent employees. I've had permanent employees, contractors, and outsourced, you know, like the expertise. And even right now, that's what we're doing. So I'm in Calgary right now training a new employee, but I have someone in Kelowna that is on contract taking over another project, and I'm outsourcing all the things that I'm not good at. It took me about a year to really decide through COVID how I was going to even have my team set up. So I was determining, do I need to have all permanent employees? Like, is that what I need? Do I need to have like 5 recruiters? Or can I contract out some of this specialty where I have someone in Toronto and I have someone in Kelowna and I have someone and I have a network in the US? Because one of the challenges with Essence is that when I'm going up against a national firm, they have offices all across Canada. So, and I have an office in Saskatoon. So when they're making a decision on who to hire, I have to compete against somebody that says, okay, well, great, Tracy, you're local, but how can you recruit for someone in Toronto? And because they don't understand our business, they feel more secure if someone's sitting in Toronto. So we had to make those decisions based on what our clients were looking for. So that's why we have a mix of contractors that are spread across where we can, you know, promote this. And then we can also have our permanent employees that are going to help grow this team. So when, you know, I want a solid foundation of a team, but I still am always going to need those contractors. And I know I will never, ever be great at marketing, you know, finance, accounting. That will always be outsourced. So, you know, until maybe the day that I'm big enough that I am giving, like outsourcing that stuff, that I can now bring it in-house because they are now busy enough to be in-house. Right now, it's just not relevant. So that's a little bit about my story and some of the decisions that we have made on the different options that are out there.
Thank you. We have a couple comments and questions in the Q&A and in the chat box. I don't know which one you want to start with.
You go ahead. You tell me.
In the Q&A box, we have a question from Natasha, and she's saying that she's a professional organizer and would like to expand her business. In the past, she hired a person as a contractor. However, she's not sure if that's the right way to move forward. Her work is somewhat sporadic, and she also has a follow-up question saying, do you have a guarantee part-time employees a certain amount of hours? Or yeah, do you have to guarantee part-time employees a certain amount of hours?
No, you don't, but I mean, like, you have to do it in shifts, right? So I mean, so you have to at least guarantee 3 hours a day, and then what happens is that I think I think traditionally, like, part-time, yeah, is up to 24 hours, and then over 24 it goes into. I think, sorry, I'm gonna have to get back to it if you guaranteed an amount of hours, but you do have to guarantee 3 hours a day at a minimum. What I would say to part-time though is, with the competitive market out there, it's to find the right fit. So I think that part-time employees with really strong expertise is the most difficult to find. Some suggestions have been is like moms groups, like that they want to work 10 hours a week, and they want to have flexibility when that is. So as long as you can give them the minimum of 3 hours of work per shift, I don't think that there's any other guarantee that you have to give them. It's just, I'd also just consider, what are you looking for, and is it viable to hire them part-time?
Thank you. A suggestion, if you stop sharing your screen, you could see the comments that's on the chat box. But I can read the other question that was from Corinne, which says, when hiring for fit and culture, how do you keep unconscious bias from creeping in?
Yeah. Okay. So good question. So lots of, yeah, I understand where you're coming from. So we have a set of questions that we ask every single time that really is directed to them. So we are trying to, that when we get to know somebody, we're trying to find out about them first. So we ask questions, and I can send this to you about the questions that we'd ask, but we've come up with a varied amount of questions that was just set out for them. The other thing that we recommend and can do, and may not be an option, but there's like different types of psychometric testing or different type of testing. So there is it's actually a card game. It's actually from cards. It's from John Maxwell, and it's about values. So it just really picks their top 5 values, and it does it align with yours. And the methodology is that 3 out of the 5 should actually match with your values. So just even little things like that. And then there's actually just like, how we learn. There's simple assessments that you can do, or you can do very complex assessments. And then along with just a set of questions that is really directed towards them. So it's not really about talking about your company and what you're looking for. You're just really asking questions about them first. So they can't answer the questions as it relates to you trying to get the job, answering the questions as they would try to relate to get the job, because you're asking not personal, you're asking them questions about themselves and just about where they want to see themselves as in career expectations, professional development, fit, values, culture. I ask questions about like what motivates them, what do they never want to do again, questions around how they work, their work style, those type of things, to get them to know them a little bit better, to try to alleviate some of that unbiased opinion. Also, though, because we live in a small city, the other recommendation that I have is have someone else there. So if you know this person and you know them at a different level, then you will see them differently. I would recommend having someone else in the room to have that interview that doesn't know them, that would not have would have any type of opinion coming in at all. Does that help?
That was a great answer. There's a couple comments in the chat box from Jill.
Okay. Okay, something that was missed. Just wait. If you're working. Yeah. So Jill made a really good comment. If you're working with a contractor, make sure you document all the work that they're doing. That way, if the contractor leaves, the knowledge doesn't leave. So that's a really good point. Thanks, Jill. And yeah, and this is a security and a risk in a risk perspective, as Jill said, that there may be that, I mean, they don't necessarily need to see everything that you see that's internal, that they have like some other type of access to a different system, so they don't have all your, you know, intellectual property, basically. Is that what you're saying, Jill? Let's see what she says. Anyone else have a comment, suggestion? Anyone have any input? Disagree with me? I completely, like, I'm open to, I'd love to hear other people's experiences, see what they would like to say. Okay, well, I'm always available. If anybody has any questions, if anybody's going through this and they just want to have a soundboard and just want to chat through it, what their ideas are, if they're running into any issues, if they just need someone to talk through it with, I'm always available. Like, just give me a call, send me an email, and we can set up a time to chat and go through it. I love talking about this stuff. I love hearing about other people's stories and their experiences and what they're going through. And if I can help you in any way, just give me a call, and I'd love to be your soundboard.
Thank you so much. On the email that goes out tomorrow with the recording to the webinar, I will put your contact information on the bottom. So if anyone in attendance does have questions for Tracy, you can find her contact information that way. But thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. It was very informative. And thank you to everyone who in attendance. And if you go on the West website, west.ca/events, you see our upcoming webinars for the month of August and our business growth luncheon that's tomorrow. With that, I will now end the webinar. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Bye. Thank you.